On the planet Virelon, the skies had turned a dull red, and the air was no longer safe to breathe. Long ago, the Akran people had built shining cities that touched the clouds and oceans that glowed in silver light. They were proud and intelligent beings known for their art, science, and peaceful ways. But pride and comfort had blinded them. For hundreds of years, they took everything from their world, digging too deep, building too much, and using up the planet's strength. The air grew thin, storms turned violent, and plants stopped growing. The once beautiful world slowly became a dying land. At first, the Akran believed they could fix it. They built great machines to clean the skies, created shields to hold in the air, and sent ships to gather ice from nearby moons for water. But nothing lasted. The machines broke down, the shields failed, and the oceans continued to rot. Generations passed, and the young grew up never seeing a clear blue sky. They called the sun the fading eye, because every year it seemed dimmer, weaker, and farther away. Their cities became ghostly towers standing on empty plains where dust storms howled day and night. The Akran government tried to keep hope alive. They promised a planet rebirth project, claiming they would restore the world's balance. But the project drained the last of their resources and led to more despair. When the great power plants finally ran out of fuel, half the planet's lights went dark. People huddled inside their homes, burning anything they could find for warmth. Families whispered old songs to their children. Songs about green fields and glowing lakes, things the young had never seen with their own eyes. It was not just the world that was dying. The spirit of the Akran was fading too. Among them was a scientist named Rethan. He had once been a dreamer, one of the brightest minds in the Stellar Academy. He had spent his life studying stars, believing that somewhere in the galaxy there must be a second home for his people. When he was young, his friends laughed at him. "Why would we ever leave Virelon?" they said. "We are its children. The planet will forgive us." But as the skies darkened and the storms grew worse, those same friends came to Rethan for hope. He no longer laughed. He knew the truth. Virelon could not forgive. It was too late. Rethan joined a desperate project known as the Refuge Fleet Initiative. The idea was simple: build enormous ships that could travel across the stars and carry the remaining Akran to safety. But the resources were few and time was even shorter. Only 12 ships were completed, giant floating arcs powered by the last fusion cores on the planet. Each ship could hold 10,000 Akran, but there were millions left behind. It was a cruel choice. The government chose scientists, engineers, and young families first. Many cried and protested, but there was no other way. The skies had already turned poisonous. On the day of departure, the air smelled of smoke and salt. Mountains crumbled in the distance as the planet's crust began to crack. The lucky few who had been chosen to leave stood inside the great launch halls, staring through the glass walls at their dying home. Rethan looked out too, his heart heavy. His parents had refused to leave. They said, "We were born here, and here we will stay." He had tried to convince them, but they only smiled. "Find a place where the sun still shines," his mother told him. "And remember us when you see it." When the engines roared to life, the ground shook violently. The ships lifted one by one, glowing like falling stars rising in reverse. Below, millions watched as the last hope of Virelon vanished into the red sky. The sound of the engines mixed with the cries of those left behind. Many lifted their hands toward the sky until the ships disappeared. The moment was both beautiful and tragic, a final farewell between a world and its children. For weeks, the 12 ships traveled together, leaving their solar system behind. The Akran looked through the windows at the endless blackness of space. Some wept silently. Others prayed. They named their fleet the Last Dawn. At first, there was hope. The ships were equipped with advanced life support systems and artificial gardens. But soon, problems began. One ship's reactor failed, forcing it to turn back, though everyone knew there was no home left to return to. Another ship disappeared after entering an asteroid field. Fear spread like wildfire among the travelers. Rethan, now appointed as commander of the surviving fleet, tried to keep order. He encouraged everyone to believe that somewhere out there, a world was waiting for them, a new Virelon. He spent long hours scanning nearby star systems, looking for planets with breathable atmospheres. But every reading came back negative: too hot, too cold, too toxic. The food supplies began to run low. The artificial gardens could no longer grow enough crops, and people started rationing their meals. Children grew thin and sickness spread in the lower decks. The Akron were proud beings, but in the cold of space, pride no longer mattered. They shared what they could, sang songs to keep their spirits alive, and recorded stories for future generations, if any would survive. Some whispered that the universe itself had turned its back on them. Others believed it was punishment for what they had done to Virion. But Rathan refused to give up. He told his people, "If we can destroy a world, then we can also learn to protect one." Years passed. The fleet drifted through empty regions where even starlight seemed faint. Time lost meaning. Many of the old died quietly in their sleep. The young grew up never having seen a planet, only stars and metal walls. Still they dreamed. They imagined green skies, soft winds, and real sunlight on their faces. Those dreams kept them alive more than any machine could. Rathan often stood alone in the observation deck, staring into the void, whispering to himself, "There has to be something out there." One day, a weak signal appeared on the scanners. It was small and irregular, the kind of signal most crews ignored as background noise. But Rathan ordered the fleet to investigate. As they moved closer, they found a yellow star with a blue planet orbiting it. The readings were shocking. Breathable atmosphere, abundant water, and organic life. For a long moment, no one spoke. The crew exchanged hopeful glances. Could this be it? Could this strange blue world be the salvation they had searched for? But then came the warning from the database. The planet's name was Earth. It was marked in galactic archives as a death world. The entry described it as dangerously unstable, full of violent weather, powerful animals, and an unpredictable native species known as humans. The Akron Council argued for days. Some said it was madness to go there. Others said it was their only chance. They had lost too much already. The fleet's reactors were dying and oxygen levels were falling. The choice was simple: risk everything or die in the dark. Rathan made the final decision. He stood before his people and said, "We cannot fear a world simply because others call it dangerous. We were born on a world that killed us slowly. I would rather die trying to live than fade away waiting for nothing." His words spread through the ships, giving strength to those who had lost all hope. The fleet changed course toward the blue planet. As the ships approached, they saw white clouds swirling over deep oceans, continents shining under golden sunlight, and flashes of green forests. It was beautiful, wild and alive, unlike anything the Akron had ever seen. For the first time in generations, they felt warmth on their faces as the sunlight touched their hulls. Many wept openly. The long journey might finally be over. Yet as they entered Earth's orbit, fear returned. Their sensors picked up thousands of human machines circling the planet, satellites, ships, and weapons. Earth was not an empty world. It was full of life and danger. Rathan knew they might be seen as invaders. Still, he ordered a message to be sent across all human communication channels. The message was simple and full of humility. "We seek mercy, not war." And so the Akron waited, their ships floating silently above a planet of storms and hope. They had come from a dying world, crossing the darkness between stars, driven only by desperation and faith. Now everything depended on the answer from below. When the Akron ships reached Earth's orbit, the people inside were silent. They looked down at the blue and green planet below them, their hearts beating fast. After years of wandering in darkness, they had found a living world. It was bright, full of light and color. Huge white clouds moved slowly across deep blue oceans. Mountains stretched high into the sky, and deserts glowed like gold under the sun. For the Akron, it was the most beautiful thing they had ever seen. Yet beauty could not hide the fear that filled their hearts. They all knew what this planet was called: Earth, the Death World. The Galactic Archives had told many stories about Earth. It was said to be dangerous, full of wild creatures, deadly diseases, and violent storms. Even worse, it was home to the humans, beings known for their strange mix of kindness and destruction. Some called them heroes, others called them monsters. No one in the galaxy understood how humans could live on such a chaotic planet and still build civilizations. To the Akron, humans were like the planet itself, unpredictable, fierce, and alive. Approaching Earth felt like flying into the mouth of a beast. Inside the command ship, Commander Rathan stood before a wide observation window, watching Earth spin below. His face was calm, but inside he was full of worry. He knew they had little time left. The fleet's oxygen levels were dropping, the food supplies were nearly gone, and many of their engines were failing. They could not keep flying much longer. If they didn't find a place to land soon, the Akron race would vanish into the cold silence of space. Rethan turned to his officers and said softly, "We have no other choice. We must try." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Some whispered that humans might attack them. Others said they should keep searching for another world, even if it meant dying on the way. But Rethan raised his hand to silence them. "Listen," he said. "We have traveled for years across empty stars. We have seen nothing like this world. It is alive. Maybe dangerous, yes, but life always is. If we cannot ask for mercy from living beings, then what kind of people are we?" After a moment, no one argued. Everyone knew he was right. The communication team began preparing a signal, a message written in hundreds of languages, both alien and universal. The words were simple. "We come in peace. We seek mercy, not war." When the message was ready, Rethan gave the order to send it toward Earth. The soundless waves of data shot through space, crossing the thin line between the Akron fleet and the human world below. On Earth, the signal arrived like a spark in the middle of an ordinary day. It first reached a weather satellite orbiting over the Pacific Ocean, then jumped across networks until it reached the human communication systems. Within minutes, every major government detected it. The message was strange, calm, and clearly not human. Scientists confirmed it was coming from 12 large objects orbiting the planet. The world went silent for a moment, then exploded in noise. News channels shouted headlines like "Alien contact confirmed" and "Unknown ships detected above Earth." People ran to their televisions, phones, and radios. Some were excited, others terrified. Religious leaders called it a sign from the heavens. Military leaders called it a potential invasion. Every country prepared its defenses. Fighter jets were scrambled, nuclear missiles were readied, and world leaders gathered for emergency meetings. Humanity had waited for centuries to meet life beyond Earth. But now that it had happened, no one knew what to do. Meanwhile, in a research base hidden deep in the Swiss Alps, a group of scientists worked day and night to decode the alien message. Among them was Dr. Lena Moritz, a young linguist who had spent her life studying ancient languages and signals from space. When she first heard the message, she felt a strange sense of sadness in it. "It's not a threat," she told her team. "It's a cry for help." But the military advisors around her didn't believe her. "They could be lying," one said. "Maybe it's a trap." Lena shook her head. "Listen to the tone. Whoever they are, they're desperate." Up above, the Akron waited. Hours turned into days. The humans were watching but not answering. The fleet's systems were growing weaker with each passing moment. Many of the Akron had already fallen ill from the failing air systems. Children were crying, the elderly were fainting, and even the strongest officers began to lose hope. Commander Rethan stayed awake through the long nights, watching Earth's light sparkle from orbit. "Please," he whispered to the planet below, "don't let us die so close to life." Finally, after 2 days of silence, a faint reply came through. It was shaky, full of static, but it was a voice, human and nervous. "This is the United Terran Alliance," it said. "We received your message. Identify yourselves." Rathan's heart leaped. He motioned to his team to open the channel. "We are the Akron of Virulon," he said slowly, speaking in the simplest language translation they had. "Our world is dead. We ask only for a place to rest." The human voice paused, then answered, "You claim to come in peace. We will verify this. Do not move closer to Earth until we say so." Over the next few days, humans studied every movement of the Akron ships. Military satellites circled them, scanning for weapons or signs of danger. Fighter jets patrolled the skies, ready to attack if needed. The Akron knew they were being watched, but they did nothing to resist. Rethan ordered all ships to stay still and keep their energy weapons offline. "Let them see our patience," he said. "Let them see we mean no harm." Down on Earth, debates broke out everywhere. Some humans believed the aliens were sincere, others wanted them destroyed before they could attack. The media fueled fear, showing images of giant ships hanging over the planet. Crowds filled the streets protesting and praying. The world was on edge. But in a quiet conference room, Dr. Lena Moritz convinced the Alliance Council to let her team make direct contact. "If they truly are refugees," she said, "then humanity must decide what kind of species we are, the kind that helps, or the kind that destroys." Lena's proposal was accepted, though only partly. She and a small team were allowed to establish a controlled communication link with the Akron flagship. When the signal connected, the first face Rethan saw on his screen was hers, a human woman with tired eyes and a determined expression. "This is Dr. Lena Moritz of Earth," she said. "I speak for the United Terran Alliance." "Who are you?" Rethan replied. "I am Commander Rethan of the Akron Fleet. Our world has perished. We come not to invade, but to survive." For a long moment, neither spoke. They simply looked at each other, two beings from different worlds, both carrying the weight of their people. Then Lena asked softly, "Why Earth? You must know how dangerous it is." Rethan smiled weakly. "Because danger is still life. We have seen only death for many years. Your world still fights to live. That is something we wish to learn." Lena didn't answer immediately, but his words touched her deeply. She could see the pain in his eyes, the same pain she had seen in human refugees who had lost their homes to war and disaster. "We will try to help," she finally said. "But you must understand, our people are afraid. They've never seen anyone like you." Rethan nodded. "Fear is natural. We are afraid too." Over the next few days, small steps were taken. A meeting point was chosen on the edge of Earth's atmosphere, where human ships could safely approach one of the Akron vessels. Both sides agreed to strict rules. No weapons, no sudden moves. When the first human shuttle arrived, carrying Lena and her team, the Akron watched from their observation decks. For the first time in history, two intelligent species from different worlds met face to face. The moment Lena stepped inside the Akron ship, she felt a wave of emotion. The air smelled faintly of metal and strange herbs. The corridors were dimly lit, and everywhere she looked, she saw signs of struggle. Damaged panels, worn suits, and faces full of exhaustion. The Akron were tall and graceful, with pale skin that shimmered like silver under the lights. Their eyes were large, glowing faintly blue, filled with both fear and hope. When Rethan greeted her, he bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Welcome aboard," he said. "You are the first human to walk among us." Lena smiled nervously. "And you are the first alien to speak to Earth." The two shared a quiet laugh, small, but it broke the tension. For hours they talked. Rethan showed her the ship's failing systems and explained how many of his people were sick. Lena listened carefully and promised to bring medical supplies and food. She recorded everything to show her superiors back on Earth. When she finally returned to her shuttle, she said to her team, "They are not a threat. They are survivors." Her report changed everything. The world slowly began to calm down. More human ships arrived with supplies. Doctors, engineers, and translators worked together with the Akron. The first step of trust had been taken. In the darkness of space, where once there had been only fear, a fragile bridge was being built between two very different species. One born of chaos, the other of despair. And somewhere above the clouds, Commander Rethan looked down at the blue planet and whispered, "Maybe this death world is where life begins again." When the Akron ships were first seen in the skies, the world below fell into chaos. People pointed at the bright silver lights that moved slowly above the clouds, some praying, others screaming. News channels showed live footage of the huge shapes hanging in orbit. Governments made urgent announcements telling people to stay calm, but no one really could. The internet was full of wild theories. Some said it was the end of the world. Others said it was the start of a new era. Across cities and small towns, people gathered on rooftops at night staring up, wondering if the visitors would attack or speak. At the same time, the human military forces were on full alert. Fighter jets circled the skies, submarines hid beneath the oceans, and missiles stood ready. Every nation feared that the aliens might be preparing an invasion. Yet no attack came. The Akron ships just floated silently, never firing, never moving closer. They seemed to be waiting. Scientists tried to study their behavior, scanning the ships for energy readings, but the technology was far beyond human understanding. Inside the command centers of powerful countries, leaders argued. Some wanted to shoot first to protect Earth. Others insisted on waiting to understand. In the middle of all this fear stood Dr. Lena Moritz, the linguist who had first spoken with the Akron commander, Rethan. She spent her days translating their messages, her nights writing reports for the United Terran Alliance. She felt torn between two worlds, her own people full of fear and suspicion, and the alien race above full of hope and desperation. When she looked into Rethan's tired eyes during their video transmissions, she saw no hatred there, only sadness. She often thought, maybe they're more human than we are. After a week of tense communication, the Alliance agreed to send a small medical team to one of the Akron ships. The decision came after Lena's strong recommendation. She had shown video evidence of the Akron children, thin, pale, and sick, and recordings of the weak, trembling voices asking for water and air. If we turn away from them now, she told the council, then humanity will have failed its greatest test. Her words spread beyond the meeting room, reaching the media and the public. Slowly, people began to change their minds. For the first time, sympathy replaced fear. When the medical shuttle launched from Earth carrying supplies and doctors, millions watched it rise into the sky. It was a historic moment. On board were humans wearing protective suits, unsure of what they would find. As they approached the Akron flagship, a docking bay opened slowly like a great metal flower. Inside stood dozens of Akrons, silent and waiting. They looked fragile, their silver-blue skin dim under the artificial lights. When the first human doctor stepped forward, an Akron child ran up and touched her gloved hand. The doctor froze for a moment, then smiled softly. That one small gesture broke the barrier of fear. Commander Rethan welcomed the human team personally. His voice was calm, though everyone could see he was exhausted. "Thank you," he said, bowing slightly. "We have little left, but we are grateful." The doctors quickly set to work, scanning the sick, giving medicine, and providing clean water. They discovered that many Akron were suffering from oxygen deprivation and malnutrition. Their ships had been failing for years, and the recycling systems could no longer purify the air properly. Humans brought portable oxygen tanks and nutrient packs, saving dozens of lives in just a few hours. The cooperation continued for days. Lena stayed in constant contact with Rethan, helping translate between the medical teams and the Akron engineers. She was fascinated by their technology, which looked both ancient and advanced, elegant designs powered by fading energy cores. One night, while studying the ship's systems with Rethan, she asked quietly, "Do you ever miss your home?" He looked out the window at the stars before answering, "Every day. But when I see your planet, I remember what ours used to be. Full of light and noise, full of life." As news of the peaceful contact spread, Earth's people began to change. Instead of preparing for war, they started organizing relief efforts. Scientists, engineers, and diplomats joined forces to help the Akron repair their ships. The first images of humans and Akron working side by side filled television screens across the world. People cried when they saw alien children smiling again, or Akron engineers teaching humans how to purify water with new techniques. The fear that once ruled the planet began to fade, but not everyone was happy. Some powerful leaders and military groups believed the Akron were still hiding something. They said the aliens might be pretending to be weak to gain Earth's trust. Rumors spread that the Akron ships carried weapons or that they had destroyed their own world on purpose. Protesters filled the streets carrying signs that said "Earth for humans" and "Send them away." The United Terran Alliance had to work carefully, balancing between compassion and caution. During this time, Lena and Rethan grew closer as they spent long hours speaking through their communication link. She found him wise and patient, but also deeply lonely. He carried the burden of an entire species on his shoulders. One evening, after another long day of negotiations, Lena asked, "Do you think humans will ever truly trust you?" Rethan smiled sadly. "Trust is not a gift," he said.
"It's something you build piece by piece."
"Even if they never trust us fully, I will still be grateful that they listened." The turning point came when an accident almost destroyed everything. A human military satellite malfunctioned and fired a small defense missile toward one of the Akron ships by mistake. The missile exploded near the outer hull, causing panic among the fleet. Some Akron demanded that Rethan fight back, but he refused. "If we answer violence with violence," he told them, "we prove their fears true." Instead, he sent a message to Earth explaining the incident calmly. Lena worked quickly to confirm the truth and broadcast it publicly. When humans learned that the attack had been an accident and that the Akron had shown restraint, trust in them grew stronger than before. After that day, everything began to change faster. The Akron were allowed to land a few of their smaller ships on Earth for closer study and aid. The chosen location was a desert area in Australia, far from large cities but easy to reach. When the first Akron set foot on the planet, the ground felt strange and heavy beneath them. The air was thick, full of smells and sounds they had never known. Wind, insects, the hum of life. Many fell to their knees, overwhelmed by the feeling of standing on solid ground again. Humans watched from a distance, curious and cautious. The first to approach were scientists and translators, then soldiers, then civilians. Slowly, both sides began to talk and trade. Humans gave the Akron food and clean water. The Akron shared their technology and medical knowledge. They even repaired some human machines using their advanced tools. Children from nearby towns waved at the alien visitors, and soon, laughter replaced fear. But the road to peace was still not easy. The Akron had trouble breathing Earth's air for long periods, and their skin was sensitive to sunlight. Human scientists worked with them to develop suits that filtered air and protected their bodies. In return, the Akron helped create new systems to clean polluted rivers and grow crops faster. The partnership became stronger each day. Still, there were challenges. Some humans refused to believe the Akron could be trusted. They spread lies and tried to sabotage the cooperation projects. One night, a group of extremists attacked an Akron supply base, setting it on fire. The Akron guards didn't fight back. They simply tried to save what they could. When the fire was out, Rathan visited the site himself. He looked at the burned ground and said quietly, "Your world burns like ours once did, but maybe this time we can stop the fire before it's too late." Lena visited him soon after. She was heartbroken by what had happened. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice shaking. Rathan looked at her with gentle eyes. "Do not be sorry for all of humanity," he said. "Even in our world there were those who chose hate, but it was the kind ones who kept us alive." His words stayed with her for a long time. As the weeks passed, trust grew deeper. The United Terran Alliance held a public broadcast where Rathan and Lena stood side by side, addressing both species. Rathan spoke slowly, his voice soft but strong. "We came here with nothing," he said. "We feared you and you feared us. But fear is only the first step toward understanding. You showed us mercy when you could have shown us death. For that, we will always remember you." The speech was watched by billions of people. Many cried, realizing they were witnessing something greater than any war or discovery. They were witnessing the birth of friendship between two worlds. In the days that followed, humans began referring to the Akron not as aliens but as guests. The first joint colony project was started on Earth's surface, a place where humans and Akron could live and work together. Children from both species played side by side, their laughter echoing across the desert. It was a small beginning, but it meant everything. High above the Earth, as the sun rose over the horizon, Rathan stood on the deck of his ship and watched the blue planet glow. For the first time in many years, he felt hope stronger than fear. He whispered to himself, "Perhaps this death world is not where we die, but where we live again." And deep in her laboratory on Earth, Lena looked up at the same sky and smiled, knowing that somewhere out there, her alien friend was thinking the same thing. The first few months after the Akron settled on Earth were full of hope, confusion, and hard work. For the first time in generations, they had solid ground beneath their feet, real air to breathe, and sunlight that warmed their skin. But it was also a world full of danger. The Akron were not used to Earth's strong gravity, harsh weather, and countless forms of life that seemed to appear everywhere. Insects that bit, plants that burned to the touch, animals that stared from the shadows with curious or hungry eyes. To humans, this was normal. To the Akron, it was terrifying. Many of them whispered that perhaps the old stories about the death world were true after all. Their temporary home was a wide desert plain in Australia, where the land stretched endlessly in golden waves. The government had built shelters and laboratories for the aliens, while scientists from both sides worked together to understand each other's biology and technology. At first, communication was slow and difficult, even with translators. The Akron spoke softly, with musical tones that didn't always fit into human language. And humans, though friendly, often spoke too quickly and loudly for the Akron's sensitive hearing. But both tried. They smiled, used gestures, and learned simple words from each other. Every small success, a shared meal, a working experiment, a laugh, felt like a victory. Still, not everything went smoothly. The Akron's bodies struggled to adapt to Earth's air. Though they could breathe it, it was heavier and filled with microscopic particles that made them sick. The medical teams worked day and night to develop breathing filters and light suits that helped the Akron move freely, without danger. Some humans complained that too much money and time were being spent on the aliens, while others argued that helping them would benefit everyone. They can teach us things we've never known, Dr. Lena Moritz said in a global broadcast. Their knowledge can help heal our planet. Her words reminded people of the kindness that had started it all, and the protests began to fade. Commander Rethan, meanwhile, worked closely with human engineers to repair parts of the Akron fleet. The ships were old and weak, but the technology inside them amazed human scientists. They discovered that the Akron had developed powerful environmental systems, machines that could clean polluted air and water using light energy. When tested, these devices worked better than anything humans had invented. Soon plans began to form. What if these machines could be used to restore Earth's damaged ecosystems? The idea spread quickly, and both species joined hands to begin what became known as the Renewal Project. For the first time in history, Akron engineers and human scientists worked side by side. Together they built small purification towers across polluted rivers and cities. Within weeks the air smelled fresher, and the water turned clearer. People who had once doubted the Akron now watched in awe as their technology began to heal the world. Rethan stood before one of the glowing towers and smiled faintly. "Perhaps," he said to Lena, "this is how we repay your kindness by giving life back to your planet." Lena nodded, her eyes full of pride. "Maybe this is how we both begin again." But not everyone saw the cooperation as a blessing. There were still humans who distrusted the Akron, calling them parasites or invaders in disguise. Small groups spread lies online, claiming that the aliens were secretly taking over Earth or poisoning the air. One night, a group of extremists attacked one of the purification towers, planting explosives that destroyed months of work. When news of the explosion spread, fear returned like a dark shadow. Some demanded that the Akron be moved off the planet. The fragile peace seemed ready to break. Rethan called an emergency meeting with the United Terran Alliance. "We came here to live, not to fight," he said. "If our presence brings only pain, we will leave." But Lena stood up and shook her head. "No," she said firmly. "If you leave now, it will prove the liars right. We must show them that cooperation is stronger than hate." Her courage inspired both sides. Together they rebuilt the tower, this time with both humans and Akron working side by side. When the new tower was completed, people from around the world watched as it rose into the sky, glowing bright against the night. It became a symbol of unity. Despite the progress, everyday life for the Akron remained challenging. Their food supplies from their ships were running out, and Earth's food was not easy for them to eat. The taste, smell, and chemistry of human crops made many of them sick. To solve this, human biologists worked with Akron scientists to create hybrid plants, crops that could grow in Earth's soil but were safe for Akron digestion. These new plants glowed faintly at night, and soon small alien gardens began to bloom in the desert camps. The sight of the shimmering fields became famous across the world. Children would visit the camps to see them, laughing as the plants changed color when touched. As months turned into years, the two species began to understand each other more deeply. Humans admired the Akron's calmness and their way of solving problems through patience instead of anger. The Akron admired humanity's stubborn courage, their ability to survive even when everything seemed impossible. "You humans," one Akron elder told Lena, "live on a planet that tries to kill you every day. Storms, fires, beasts, even your own kind. Yet you continue to smile. You truly are Deathworlders, but ones who refuse to die." Rethan often thought about that. He had once feared Earth, but now he respected it. He saw how humans could adapt to anything. If the weather burned them, they built shelters. If the land flooded, they rebuilt their homes. It was a kind of strength the Akron had never known. One evening, as he stood outside watching the sunset, he said quietly to Lena, "Perhaps this is why we were drawn to your world. You have learned what we never did, to live with the chaos, not against it." Their friendship grew strong, but both knew the path ahead was still long. When the Akron began building permanent homes on Earth, they faced new challenges. Their architecture was different, smooth, rounded buildings made from biometal and light energy. Human builders were fascinated by the design, and soon they began blending the two styles. The first shared city rose from the desert sands, a place of glowing domes, tall glass towers, and gardens that seemed to breathe. They called it Haven. People from both species lived there, worked there, and raised children there. But even as Haven grew, tensions simmered elsewhere. Some governments worried that the Akron technology would give certain nations too much power. Political leaders argued about who should control the new inventions. Rethan and Lena worked hard to keep the project neutral, insisting that all discoveries be shared equally across the planet. "Knowledge is not a weapon," Rethan said in a global broadcast. "It is a bridge." His speech was simple, but it touched hearts around the world. Slowly, the noise of politics quieted, at least for a time. Inside Haven, life was not always easy, but it was full of hope. Akron children learned human languages, and human children learned the Akron's soft melodic speech. The city's schools taught history from both worlds, stories of Virelon's fall and Earth's survival. The young grew up seeing each other not as alien or human, but as part of the same new story. Festivals were held every year, where music from both cultures filled the streets, and lanterns made of Akron crystal floated into the night sky like stars. Yet beneath the peace, Rethan sometimes felt a quiet sadness. He often visited the memorial built for Virelon, a large stone circle in the center of Haven, engraved with the names of all who had died when their world was lost. There he would stand alone and whisper, "We have not forgotten you." Lena would sometimes join him, bringing flowers. One evening, she asked softly, "Do you ever think your people will call this place home?" Rethan looked around at the glowing city and the children playing nearby. "Home," he said, "is not where you are born. It is where someone welcomes you." But danger was never far away. One summer, a powerful sandstorm swept across the desert, destroying part of Haven's outer buildings and nearly collapsing the energy shield that protected it. For hours, humans and Akron worked side by side in the storm, repairing the barriers, carrying supplies, and rescuing the trapped. When the winds finally stopped, they were covered in dust and exhausted but alive. The next day, news networks across the world showed footage of the two species helping each other, holding hands, saving lives. It became one of the most powerful images of unity ever captured. In the following years, the Renewal Project expanded beyond the desert. Akron technology was used to heal forests, clean oceans, and rebuild ruined cities. In return, humans taught the Akron how to grow food in rough conditions and protect themselves against Earth's diseases. Together, they made a promise to protect both species and the planet that had given them a second chance. Rethan often reflected on how far they had come. When his people first arrived, they were broken, lost, and afraid. Now they were learning not just to survive, but to live again. They had faced hatred, danger, and mistrust, yet they had not given up. The humans, too, had changed. They had learned empathy beyond their own kind. "Maybe," Rethan said one evening as he and Lena watched the horizon glow with the lights of Haven, "this planet is called the Deathworld not because it kills, but because it teaches you how to live." Lena smiled at him. "And maybe," she said softly, "you came here to remind us what life really means." The wind carried their words across the desert, where Akron and humans worked side by side under the stars, rebuilding not just their world, but their hearts. Years passed, and the line between humans and the Akron began to fade. What had once been two separate civilizations slowly became one shared world. The desert city of Haven had grown into a shining metropolis filled with light, color, and sound. Its streets were lined with glowing plants from Akron gardens, and its towers reached into the sky like human skyscrapers. People from every country and colony came to see it. They called it the city where the stars met the earth. For the Akron, it was more than just a city. It was proof that their story had not ended when Virelon died. It was proof that life could begin again, even on a death world. Commander Rethan, now older and slower, often walked through the streets of Haven in silence. He watched Akron children running beside human friends, laughing in the warm sunlight. They played games neither species had known before, blending rules and songs from both cultures. Sometimes, when he looked at them, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, a feeling he had not known since his home world still existed. "We were afraid of you once," he said one day to a group of laughing children, "but now I see you are what we were searching for, a future that will not end." The children didn't fully understand, but they smiled and offered him one of their glowing flowers. He took it, and for a moment he felt young again. Across the planet, humans and Akron worked together to rebuild what had been broken for centuries. The Renewal Project had become global, Forests that had once been gray and silent were now alive again. Rivers sparkled under the sun, and animals returned to places where they had long vanished. The air was cleaner, the skies bluer. People said Earth was healing, not through technology alone but through cooperation. For the Akron, it was the greatest act of gratitude they could offer. They had been saved by humans, and now they were saving the humans' world in return. Dr. Lena Moritz had become a global leader by then, known not as a scientist, but as a peacemaker. Her friendship with Raythan was famous, and her speeches were studied by children in schools all over the world. One morning, she stood before the United Terran Council and said, "Once we feared what was different. We looked at the stars and saw only danger. But now we look at each other and see possibility. The Akron are not visitors anymore. They are our family." Her words were broadcast across the planet and even transmitted to human colonies beyond Earth. For the first time, the galaxy saw Earth not as a violent death world, but as a world of unity and hope. However, even in peace there were still challenges. The Akron's population was slowly growing again, but many of their traditions were disappearing. The younger ones spoke more human languages than their own. Their songs and rituals passed down through generations were fading into memory. Raythan noticed this and worried. He gathered the elders one evening in the central dome of Haven. "We must not forget who we are," he said softly. "We have found a new home, yes, but our story must not vanish in it." The elders agreed, and together they began a project to preserve Akron history, recordings, art, and teachings that would be stored in a great library built at the heart of the city. Humans helped build it, calling it the Star Archive. Inside it, light flowed through crystal walls, and when someone walked through, they could see memories, images of Virulon seas, its mountains, and the glowing skies that had once been their home. It became a place of learning for both species, a reminder that survival was not only about living but about remembering. One day, as Raythan and Lena walked through the archive, he stopped before a holographic image of Virulon's twin moons. "Do you ever miss your home?" Lena asked gently. He nodded. "Every day. But when I see your people smile, I think maybe I have found another one." He turned to her with a faint smile. "Home isn't made of soil or sky. It's made of hearts." Lena's eyes softened. "Then this world is yours as much as ours." Years later, the first Akron-born child to have human blood was born in Haven. The event was celebrated worldwide. The baby, named Aaron, became a symbol of everything they had fought for: unity, survival, and hope. Both species celebrated together under the desert sky, releasing glowing lanterns into the air. The sight of thousands of lights rising into the night looked like a new constellation forming before their eyes. Some said it was the spirit of Virulon joining with Earth. Raythan held the child for a moment and whispered, "You are the bridge we built. Walk it with pride." But Raythan's health began to fade not long after. His body, never meant for Earth's gravity and air, grew weaker each day. Lena visited him often. They would sit together outside, watching the orange glow of the sunset over Haven's domes. "You gave us more than we ever expected," she told him one evening. "You gave us a reason to be better." Raythan smiled faintly. "No," he said. "You taught us how to live again. We only returned the gift." When he passed away a few weeks later, the entire city mourned. His funeral was held under the open sky, attended by thousands. Humans and Akron stood side by side, their voices blending into one great song, a mix of human melody and Akron harmony. His ashes were scattered into the wind, carried far across the desert. Some said the sands glowed faintly that night, as if the planet itself was saying goodbye. After his death, Lena continued his work. She led the building of more shared cities across the world, where humans and Akron lived together in peace. The renewal project expanded to other planets as well. Using Akron technology and human engineering, they began to terraform barren moons, creating small colonies filled with green life. Everywhere they went, they carried with them the lesson that had saved them both. Survival is not about strength alone, but about compassion. Years later, Lena wrote a book about their journey. It was called Among the Deathworlders. In it, she told the story of the Akron's arrival, their struggles, and their rebirth. The final chapter contained Raythan's last recorded words written before his death. "We came to a planet that should have killed us. Its storms burned, its air choked us, and its people feared us. Yet in those same hearts we found something stronger than any weapon: mercy. We called Earth a death world, but we were wrong. It is not the planet that brings death, but the will of its people that brings life. In their fire we found our light. The book spread across the world and was later sent to human colonies beyond the solar system, where it became a symbol of interspecies unity. As time passed, generations who had never seen the first meeting between humans and Akron grew up. To them, the idea of being different seemed strange. They studied together, worked together, and dreamed together. In Haven, children often asked their parents about the time before peace, and the stories felt like legends, tales of fear and hope that no longer matched their bright reality. Yet every year, on the day of the Akron's arrival, the city held a great festival. Lanterns shaped like stars filled the sky, music echoed through the streets, and people gathered in the plaza to tell stories of Rethan and Lena. It was not just a celebration, it was a promise to remember. One evening, decades after Rethan's passing, Lena herself stood on a balcony overlooking Haven. Her hair was gray, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes still carried the same fire. Around her, the city glowed with the lights of both species living in harmony. She looked up at the night sky where Earth's moon shone beside countless stars. Somewhere among them, she imagined Virelon, or what was left of it. "You found salvation among the Deathworlders," she whispered. "And we found hope among you." A gentle wind brushed her face, carrying the scent of blooming alien flowers. She closed her eyes and smiled. In that moment, she understood what Rethan had meant all those years ago. Home was not a place, but a connection. Humanity and the Akron had been broken, but together they had healed. They had turned fear into friendship, loss into legacy, and a death world into a cradle of life. Far beyond Haven, in the deep silence of space, probes launched by the Joint Human-Akron Alliance traveled between stars, carrying messages written in both languages. One message was repeated on every signal: "We seek mercy, not war." But now it carried a new line beneath it: "And we offer hope, not fear." The words floated endlessly through the cosmos, waiting for whoever might one day hear them. On Earth, the people of Haven slept peacefully under two skies, one filled with human dreams and the other with the memory of a lost world. The Akron had come to the death world in desperation, but here, among the fierce and fragile humans, they had found something greater than survival. They had found salvation, not through power or control, but through the simple, unbreakable strength of compassion. But here, among the fierce and fragile humans, they had found something greater than survival. They had found salvation, not through power or control, but through the simple, unbreakable strength of compassion. And in that shared salvation, the Deathworlders had found their own rebirth, proving that even the harshest world could bloom again when two hearts, however different, dared to beat as one.